Kelly, I see you as speaking, but I'm having trouble hearing anything there.
Actually, I'm not speaking.
There we go. Sorry. Do you have a particular milestone you want to look at this morning?
Actually, no. I'm just more listening in to see if there's anything that might help me. I mean, thus far, I've had no issues with any of the milestones.
Okay.
But it's more, I always listen in to whenever there's a webinar because I might pick up a little tidbit that will help me with the final milestone.
Absolutely. So my intent was to, depending upon what to go based on what the audience was looking for. So as a few of your peers join, I'll certainly go through whatever milestone they want in that order, and then feel free to take anything away from that you'd like. Otherwise, if you've got anything that you've got concerns on or any sections that maybe not a milestone it is by itself, but maybe just one section that you have questions on, I can certainly direct directly to that. But there's not I don't have any sort of formal order because it's all based on what you and your peers are looking for, how I can best assist you. If I don't get for feedback, I think what I'll do is just go through the milestones in order, describing what should be in each section and providing a template. I'll wait for a little bit before I shift gears to that point to see if there's anyone that has a particular milestone that they would prefer to start with.
Well, for me, I'd prefer the final milestone since that's the one that's due. And obviously, we should have already done the others and have submitted them. And if there were issues, I would hope that the students would have reached out to their professor to get help as in finding out why they didn't receive the grade that they thought they should.
Well, so, yeah, that can, ideally that's the case, but I think there are some people I think there are people that haven't got to that point. But if you'd like, I'm happy to go over the final. That's not a problem at all. Have you looked ahead much at the final?
I have.
Okay.
I've looked at it. In fact, I've started working on it, and actually I would need to pull up to see if there are any questions that I might have. I mean, like I said, thus far, I've had no questions or issues with doing any of the milestones.
Sure. Why don't we, Kathy's on the line with us here. Kathy, did you have a particular milestone that you want to look at with me today? I don't know if she's got audio going. It doesn't look like she does. Feel free to just use the chat window. We're getting a few more people here. I think then I'm just going to go ahead and go chronologically because we've got a few people here that don't look like they're set up for audio, so they should be able to hear me, but maybe not necessarily interact. So we're going to go through the 3 milestones in order, and then certainly the last one. That's not a problem. It'll take me a couple seconds to find my template for it, but I can go through that. And then while I'm going through that, these templates should have been posted by your professors in your either in the announcement or via email. You should have got a copy of these templates. So while I'm going through these templates, if you don't have them, just let me know and give me your email address in the chat window, and I'll flip them over to you quick so that you can make all the updates and everything while we go. So with that, I'm going to just flip over to get started on the first milestone. And I'll go through it, and anyone with questions, jump in right away, and I'll address the questions as we go. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep kind of on rambling, but this is your time, so if you got questions at all, please jump in. Again, this is the first milestone, so presumably it's done, but if you want to make some updates, this advice might be able to help you. Otherwise, you can just hang back and wait till we get to the one that you are concerned with. And because I'm sharing monitor, I'm not going to see a lot of chat things, so you'll want to jump in with audio if you have an issue. Milestone 1 is the template that I've been providing for my students. They seem to like it, and they score drastically higher when you use the template. And by the template, I mean the structure, leaving this information in here. I find it very valuable to leave the questions within the paper as opposed to writing it as a narrative. When you leave the questions in the paper, it gives you a checkpoint, if you will, to look up and see, okay, did I answer each component of the question? So to perform best on the milestones, I strongly encourage students to leave the question in. Also, it helps to break your thought, because keep in mind that while these questions are related in context, the questions you can answer, they are designed to be answered individually. So you don't necessarily one long paper, you want the individual sections. So in this first section, all of these papers, you don't necessarily have to, because it's not graded in that it's not a component on the rubric, if you will. But in most cases, a couple of sentences to start things off helps. We'll go into the first question of the milestones: generating value. How does the company in the case study use operation management functions to provide value? So with all of these, they can usually be answered in about 4 to 7 sentences. The first section, this first question, is all about what OM does to make value for Nissan. And a lot of students right away jump to this idea of the natural disaster. While that is a component of the case study, we're really looking at Nissan as a whole. We're not really necessarily looking at how they respond to this disaster. So I find a lot of people get off track there and they start talking a ton about the disaster. That's not really the focus here. The focus is, what does Nissan do to provide value from a production standpoint? So here the main value that they provide, is the tangible good, it's the car. Nissan provides value for their customers by producing an automobile. The operation function of that is to help make sure that automobile is produced as efficiently as possible. And what are some examples of what they do to make that as efficient as possible? Well, they're doing things like having a limited SKU so that they can have efficient production lines where they don't have to account for as much variability. They're doing things like having decentralized supply chain management, so your local manufacturers can have less time on speed to market and make their adjustments faster. They're doing things like having a very diverse board of directors that are able to represent the company globally. Sometimes you get a global company that's kind of headquartered in one area and your board of directors is all centralized there, and it can cause some issues for understanding your other customers. So Nissan does those types of things from an operations standpoint to provide value for their customers. The next question, I think they blend a little bit too much, because those same operational functions that they do are things that provide them a competitive advantage. So when you're talking about some of those things that Nissan does well, obviously if you're doing things better than your competition, that's what gives you an advantage. So a lot of the same content in the fact that you're talking about what Nissan does well can also be applicable in the second question. One of the keys, though, is to be clear and blunt in that this creates a competitive advantage. As an example, Nissan uses a reduced SKU line so that they can have an efficient production plant. They are able to produce vehicles more efficiently because of this. This provides a competitive advantage for them. I know it seems kind of overly structured, but bluntly calling out your competitive advantages are going to help you on the paper, because your professor is going to be able to mentally note, oh, that's one advantage, oh, that's another advantage. So those types of things that they do well, call out bluntly. And once you have 2, 3, 4 of them, you're going to have enough content for your points. Usually 4 to 7 is going to get you there, 4 to 7 sentences. So what does Nissan do to make themselves more productive? The diverse leadership, decentralized supply chain management, reduced SKU. Those are all good examples of things that they do better than their competition. The next question, comparing and contrasting service and manufacturing. The first thing I want to touch on is just what the blunt difference is, because there's a couple of key things you want to call out, and it'll help phrase the rest of the application for Nissan. So I usually tell students to first describe the difference between them, and that's looking at some of the key differences. So service is intangible. Production manufacturing is tangible. Service is very, very difficult to measure and subjective. Manufacturing is objective and easy to measure. Service is difficult to repeat. Manufacturing is easy to repeat. That's not necessarily everything that's needed for the question, but that's the differentiation that you should be thinking about for those two different areas of operations management. Because operations management isn't just building the car, it's the purchase experience. So some of those service components, while in auto manufacturing, are drastically reduced compared to like a dentist, if you will. It's still a function of operations management. So a couple sentences on what the differences are, like I listed out, and then to apply it to Nissan. Nissan's production operation, you know, the manufacturing, if you will, the tangible good they provide is the vehicle. That's I know it sounds elementary, but that's bluntly what you should call out. The manufacturing side of it makes that vehicle. The service side of it handles the purchase experience. One place students get off course a little bit here is the service. When we're talking about service, a lot of times they're giving me examples that are internal to Nissan. And service as a operations standpoint is your contact with the customer. So for Nissan, their service is stuff like the buying experience, auto service on their vehicle, you know, maintenance sort of stuff. And it would be financing, if Nissan does their own financing for vehicles. Those types of things would all be kind of considered the service arm of operations management for Nissan. If they have a customer call center, if you call for warranty questions, warranty work would be another service function. Those are all parts of the service component. So just keep in mind, it's not service internal to Nissan's operations. It's external. It's the customer facing. I'm going to check back in over to the chat window here just to make sure I don't have any sort of questions jumping out. If you do feel, yeah, Eric, you can get a copy of the template. Your professor should have provided it, but I'll be happy to switch it over. Give me 1 second. I'll do that real time because otherwise I'll forget. So I'm going to send that out, and I want anyone who would like the template to put their email address in the chat window and what template number you want. I'll just do it. I'll just send all of them.
Andrew?
Yeah.
This is Kathy. I just thought, you know what I'll do? Excuse me. While this is going on, I'll go check all of the classes, and if the templates haven't been posted, I'll put them in for you so you can tell people if they haven't seen them, they'll be there.
Yeah, okay.
Would that be easier? Or?
That's fine. So the templates, okay. the templates then, thank you, Kelly. The templates for all of these will be showing in your Blackboard shell in the very near future, if not already.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So go ahead and check your Blackboard shell for the template if you don't have it available. And then you can go ahead and, I want real-time work so that when you're done, if you're sitting in on this call and you're behind and you make some notes and you put in the effort, by the time we hang up this call, you're going to have your papers like halfway done. If you're making these notes as we go. So if you don't have the templates handy and this is something that you're working on, go to your shell, get those templates out, and we'll just add to it as you can literally take all these notes as you go, and then when we disconnect, all you got to do is kind of formalize it into a better thought, a better narrative, as opposed to just notes. So we're going to real time get a lot of the content that you need. All right, I'm going to keep going through here. Now we're looking at PERT and CPM. So the main difference on PERT versus CPM is whether the actions are structured well or not, whether you're estimating or not. PERT is going to do a 3-point estimate, so your best case, most likely case, and pessimistic or optimistic, most likely, and pessimistic case. So PERT works great for things that require estimation. So if you're Nissan, a research and development project could be PERT, or if you're looking at building a new manufacturing plant, that would be a good PERT example. For CPM, CPM is very good at structured activities, measuring the critical chain. So measuring performance in your assembly, you know what the steps are and you know the order they have to go. Obviously, you can't put a door to a car until the frame is there. So that sort of order and structure is part of CPM because you're focused on critical chain and it's structured wherein you know how long each time activity takes. So for a good project for CPM would be measuring turnaround time for production or predicting how long it will take if you make one alteration. So maybe you build something different and you rearrange the order. That sort of production-based issue is going to be better for CPM. Couple sentences on what CPM is versus PERT, and then those examples, you're good to go for that section. The steps for developing a forecast system. These steps come right out of your text. There's it's 7 steps, and a lot of times people try to research forecast systems, just various internet research. You don't want to do that. There's steps that are listed right in the course text, and you want to use those steps. I find it really, really easy to list it out like it shows on this template. So step 1, to make sure you're on the same page, if I remember right, step 1 is the subject. You know, what is it? What are you forecasting? So during this step, Nissan would determine what they're forecasting. Here you want a specific example, but make it really easy on yourself. So Nissan would choose to forecast sales for a Maxima, Nissan Maxima. You know, that's how simple and specific you'd want. So the next part is the time, right? How long the forecast should be. And for auto manufacturing, I presume you're usually going to look at model year. So next year's model, and then the next step, and so on. And if you just go through like that, and at the end have a short description, this is how forecasting works, blah, 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 couple sentences, that's going to get you all the points that you need. So a sentence or two telling what a forecast system is, and going through the steps in that chronological order, providing a very simplistic example is the easiest way to get your points here. Supply chain risk comes right from your text. A lot of people want to default to a Google search, and I strongly encourage you to utilize your text. I'm going to pause on that for 1 second because big picture, these assignments are written with the text in mind. So they go hand in hand together, and I've seen a lot of people struggle with some good content that doesn't really fit what we're looking for. So when you're defaulting to try to figure out what's the best resource for this question, you're going to want to look for your text first. It's going to be much better than the information that you're going to find just by Google searching, you know, because that's not going to be, the output of that isn't necessarily what you're looking for. While the content might have some validity, it's not the focus. So within your text, there's a page that has a list in it of supply chain risk and what the mitigation strategy is. And if you put in a short couple sentences before that, you can literally copy that chart in and change it to the mitigation strategy and note how Nissan would approach the mitigation there. So your mitigation strategy is going to be already listed in the course, in that text, and then all you have to do is change to put Nissan would, essentially, and make sure it makes sense. Obviously, you wouldn't want to put something that doesn't make sense, but that supply chain risk chart, if you will, is pretty comprehensive. That's milestone 1. The description there, if you follow that description, took some notes, the actions there, I'm relatively confident you'll do extremely well. I've talked to your professors, the other professors, and told them the structure that I go through, and if you have a bunch of stuff that I told you to put and you don't do well, your professor is going to talk to me. So I've already laid that out there, but I'm relatively confident. I've been teaching this class for a long time. I'm relatively confident that everyone's going to review things the same way I am. So I know most of your professors to some degree. and we've talked about it in advance. So before I move on, let's open that up then for milestone 1, and tell me what questions you have, whether it be in the text window or whether it be speak up. Any questions on milestone 1?
Okay.
For those questions where I said we should look at would it help for those questions where I said you should look at your text if I gave some page numbers? Does anyone have from milestone 1 specifically, does anyone have a specific, I'm sorry, I mentioned a bunch of page, look at use your text. Does anyone, if they're taking some notes for that milestone 1, need a page number? I've got someone type in there. Try to make sure that you're on mute if possible. Okay, we've got the text up. If anyone does want that example, I'll be happy to share one. Otherwise, I'll move on to milestone 2. Before I do that, does anyone have any other questions on milestone 1? I believe that Jennifer Varney, the assistant dean, is going to review it to make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And then as far as posting, I don't know if there's any postings. It might go on to our Blackboard pieces for people that weren't able to make the schedule. I don't think it'll be anything beyond that. So if you're worried about, it's not like a publicized sort of thing. It would just be to your peers.
Got a couple minutes to throw it in there. The next. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to move on to milestone 2 then. Unless anyone else has got any questions. As far as where sorry, I didn't see that earlier, Kelly. Where to look in Blackboard for the template. It should have been posted either as an announcement or in your course information component. Is there anyone that wasn't able to find it that wants it? It'd be really easy for me just to shoot it over via email. Is there anyone that needs a template that didn't have access to it? If you just provide me your email address in the chat window, I can flip it over to you really quickly. Again, I'm all about real time because if you're struggling to get these milestones done, I want you to leave this WebEx with, about halfway done, because you're going to take these notes real time as we go, disconnect the call when you're done, change your notes into a narrative, and you should be done in most cases. All right, Eric and Kelly, I'm happy to send those out. Oh, Eric said he found them. Kelly, I'm happy to send them out. Do you have a particular one, or are you looking for a couple of them? All of them, one of them, none of them? All of them? Yeah, be happy to. While I'm getting those ready to shoot out, is there, oh, somebody needs to mute. That's horrible. Oh, thank you. While I'm getting that ready to shoot out, is there anyone else that wants to have included on that email? Anyone else that wants to be included in that email, put your email address in there and I'll forward it along. All right, Kelly, you'll have those in just a couple seconds. And I'll go ahead and move on to milestone 2.
You okay?